Right, well, let's return to that. Breaking news: a man has been arrested after an 11-year-old girl and a 344-year-old woman both stabbed in London's Leicester Square. That's according to the Metropolitan Police. We have just obtained this video of the scene of the incident, the scene of the crime here. You can see Leicester Square, a large area of that central London square, covered in cordons from the police officer is there and the crowd is obviously dispersed. That is usually a very busy area of London.
And of course apologies if any viewers find this distressing. This is of course the aftermath of a daylight stabbing in central London. The hat of the attacker is left there just sort of lying in the middle of this crime scene. Of course a man has been arrested, is in police custody, and of course the area is caught off hard to overstate how central this is. A short walk from Downing Street, a very popular tourist destination, the site of a film premieres, lots of cinemas and attractions. We understand that this particular site here is just outside Lego World. There it is. This is a place for families. This is a place for tourists. This is a thriving and busy place, particularly during the summer holidays for schools, as we are now to emphasize that's an 11-year-old girl as well as a 39-year-old woman.
Now, the London Ambulance Service have released a statement as well. The spokesperson, they said, we were called at 11:36 on Monday the 12th of August today to reports of a stabbing at Leicester Square. We sent resources to the scene, including an ambulance crew, an advanced paramedic and an incident RSP response officer. We also dispatched members of our tactical response unit. We treated a child and an adult at the scene and took them to a major trauma center. And yes, as you can see, this police cordon has been put in place surrounding those major shops, the TWWG shop as well as the Lego store, and in front of the store. Apparently also families and tourists are still standing in queues for each, so hasn't been completely shut off from tourists and people, but as you can see, a large area they see off by the police.
Very, very shocking, and indeed the news that the two victims have been taken to a major trauma center does perhaps give us an indication of the severity of this stabbing. Of course a deeply, deeply severe incident. And just to correct myself, I believe I said a 39-year-old woman a little bit earlier. A 34-year-old woman was the other victim, an 11-year-old girl and a 34-year-old woman.
Shocking. We're now joined by former Scotland Yard detective Peter Bleksley. Peter, to hear of yet another stabbing incident in our capital, made all the more shocking that this incident broad daylight 11:26:36. The ambulance were called to the scene broad daylight in the very center of our capital.
Here we go again, regrettably. Lawless Britain, the absolute epidemic of knife crime that plagues our nation, building on what Tom said. Leicester Square, yes, world-renowned cinemas, theaters, restaurants, casinos and far more tourist attractions. It is the epicenter of the tourist industry for the UK in headlines of this dreadful attack, and of course I wish both of the victims all the very best in their recovery. I hope headlines of will go around the world, simply every corner of the earth, because Leicester Square is world-renowned once again. Lawless Britain having its shredded reputation shattered.
It is worth emphasizing how shocking this is. Peter, in your experience daylight stabbings like this, my goodness me, I can only think back to what we saw 2 weeks ago in Southport. I adjusted harks back, particularly because the victims are a woman and a girl. And it happened well at 11:36 in the morning. I remember sitting here at this desk 2 weeks ago when the Southport stabbings happened. That was at 11:56 if I remember correctly. Again, broad daylight. Is this a new phenomenon in Britain?
I don't think it's a new phenomenon, but it's a growing scourge, as you clearly said only 2 weeks after Southport. Here we are again, and yet Leicester Square is the center of so much crime, pickpocketing, robbery, antisocial behavior, and much more, and unfortunately it is largely left to private security companies to try and keep Leicester Square safe. It should be an area with a 24-hour police presence. Now we know thousands of police officers are elsewhere on standby for any other outbreaks of violent disorder. Ring in other words, but even when they're not, this area is not regularly patrolled by the police, and is yet, regrettably, another example of the police in the UK surrendering the streets to the criminals, and this sadly is the lawlessness that follows.
I mean, Peter, people who don't regularly go into Leicester Square or central London will probably be taken aback by what you've just said, that this area of central London, where there are so many businesses, so many tourists, local residents, to the epicenter of our cultural life here. We're just looking at live pictures of Leicester Square. As you can see, the police have cordoned off a large area right slap bang in the middle of Leicester Square, by that Lego store, and by a big tea shop there as well. There's the M&M store there close by as well. But you say that this isn't regularly or continuously policed.
No, it's down to private security companies that actually detain a lot of people in and around Leicester Square, because so many tourists go there. Criminals know that they can prey upon them there, and it really is an area of central London. But all the attractions, but all the joy that can be rinsed out of a trip going there, you have to be on red alert for your safety, and the safety of others with you. I'm afraid that yet again is another state of our lawless nation.
And yet, Peter, there is a suspect who has been apprehended, who is in custody as we speak. I mean, this could potentially have been a lot worse had there not been police who were able to get there presumably in reasonable time given the arrest.
We shall have to wait and see. Details are very scant at the moment, but if I was a gambling man, of which I'm not, I would suspect that the original detention of this person might well have come from private security teams.
And Peter, of course, our first thoughts are with the victims, one of whom is very young indeed, just 11 years old, and also a 34-year-old woman. But you mentioned too the impact this has on our international reputation. I mean, looking at the level of crime and what appears to be an increase in knife crime, particularly in our capital, it doesn't serve our country well, does it, Peter?
Not just an increase in knife crime in our capital, but throughout so many of our M60s across the UK. And I have been speaking to yourselves and many others for some years now about this scourge of knife crime. What our police and what our CPS and what our courts have shown recently is that when there is the political will, they can act swiftly to arrest, detain, gather evidence, prosecute, and see people convicted in the courts. It is rampantly neglected by our criminal justice system that has allowed the knife crime surge to get to where it is, a 78% increase in the last decade, and that's just the recorded crimes that they know about. It is long overdue for our entire criminal justice system and the politicians to put as much effort into the knife crime epidemic that they has recently done to the rioting on the streets of the UK. It is that serious.
Now, Peter, of course, we're looking at live pictures of Leicester Square, of the scene of this incident. Right here, talk us through what we're seeing. The police have obviously cordoned off a large area of a very busy square. What will the police response be doing here? Presumably forensics and working out precisely what went on.
Yes, I pwned off an area here and, clearly they've gone for safety first in terms of trying to preserve any forensic evidence. There would appear to be some material left by paramedics, I would suggest, as they were treating the victims of this awful stabbing. So in time when the resources are available, they will attend the scene and see if there's any forensic examination that could be done we don't yet know of. Of course, whether any weapon has been retrieved, we might find those details out later on. Forensics these days are a huge part of modern investigations, and this scene clearly needs to be examined, even though to many of your viewers watching it looks like bit of a desolate area with not much there perhaps to be found. You would be surprised in terms of perhaps blood spatter. What that can tell us, we know that there's a helmet lying in the road, and all of these things need to be preserved because forensics are so important. Thanks for watching this video.